Hello, all the students of class 9 and 10, you all are welcome again to Mymensingh Online School. I am Mohammad Rajul Karim, assistant teacher. Mymensingh Jila School is here to help you. Today, I'll discuss a very important topic of class 9 and 10. Though it is not only important for class 9 and 10, it is also important for the students of intermediate level. Today, our topic is graph and chart. Today, I'll discuss about graph and chart. And you will find for this topic for 10 marks. And for 10 marks, how can we get 9 or 10 or 80% mark or 90% mark from that 10 marks? Today, I'll give you or provide all these tips. Before going to my lecture, I want to talk or I want to say a few words about writing parts, as it is a part of our writing parts. Writing parts is very important for every student, because through a writing part, a student can express himself as a competitive, and what is his ability and what is his competency. Actually, if one wants to express, or if a student wants to express his capacity, competency or ability and knowledge of that language, he must have the knowledge. That knowledge, how can we write a writing part artistically? Or that is why if a student wants to write a writing part or a writings, or if they want to write something, then he or she must have some qualities. So how can we make a writing part attractive? And that is why you must have some qualities. Now I am telling you which qualities are needed. Number one, providing information according to topic. That means you will write in your exam paper a paragraph, a graph and chart, or a composition, etc. At that time, you must provide information according to that topic. If you write irrelevant something, then you will not get marks. At that time, you may find 1, 2 or 0 also. Number 2, a standard length. That means the writings, what will you write, must be at a standard length. That means a graph and chart must be or within 150 to 180 words. That means a writing must have this quality also. Otherwise, it must be according to class or class standard. If, as you are a student of class 9 and 10, so you have to write in one way. If a student if we find a student who is a student of class 6 or 7, he will write in another way. That means as a student of class 9 and 10, so you must describe a graph and chart within 150 to 180 words. That means 2 pages. Number 3, avoiding grammatical error. That means you have to avoid grammatical errors. If you make any grammatical mistake, then you will not get good marks. That is why you have to follow these steps also. Number 4, avoiding misspelling. Avoiding misspelling. And if one wants to write a good paragraph or good writings, then he must follow these steps also. If you make any mistake or misspell, then the writing part will not be attractive, and at that time you will get a poor mark. Number 5, using standard words. Number 5, using standard words according to class standard. Number 6, you have to follow sequence. That means when you write a topic or when you describe a topic, then you must follow a sequence. Otherwise, you will not get a good marks. But overall, you must have an articulation, and it is the way to express yourself. It is the way to reveal oneself. I think you all have understood. Now, I am giving you an example. That is, if I give an example, or if I think about first paper, then we find that seen passage, unseen passage, matching or rearrangement, and writing parts, etc. And amongst them, through writing part, you can show your ability. You can show your competency. And that is why in examination, you must try to write a good composition, a good graph and chart, a good paragraph or informative paragraph, informative graph and chart and composition, etc. And if you do so, then you will get a good mark, that may be 80% or 90%. I think you all have understood you have all understood my speech. Okay, now we are going to our main topic, that is graph and chart. What is graph and chart? At first, we have to know what is this. Graph and chart is compared with a picture. I think graph and chart is also a picture. It is known to all that a picture tells 1,000 words, and a graph and chart expresses, or a graph and chart tells several paragraph. That means a graph and chart is a huge thing, but we have to explain, or you have to summarize this graph and chart in our examination hall or exam paper. That is why if I give the definition of a graph and chart, then we will find that a graph and chart is such type of picture or such type of things which is a combination of a group of data or datum. Do you know the meaning of datum or data? Datum is the singular form of data. Data is plural form, datum is singular form. There we find a several datum. That is why I have uttered this word. I think you all have understood what is graph and chart. Graph and chart is a picture. That is the combination of a group of data or datum. In a graph and chart, we find a picture or a statistical information which helps us to understand a situation. That is why graph and chart vital role to the viewers to know many things or many information at a glance. If I read 10 pages about one topic, then it will take much time. But if I see a graph and chart within 2 or 3 seconds or 5 seconds or 10 seconds, then it will helps you to understand this matter better. That is why graph and chart is very important, and so NCTB prescribed or NCTB fixed this type of topic for the students of 9 and 10. Before explaining this, I want to tell you, I will tell you that after this class, what will be the learning outcome? If I complete this lesson, if I complete this class, what will be the learning outcome? The learning outcome will be the learning outcome. What is graph and chart? Types of graph and chart. Necessary tools to explain graph and chart. Tense and graph. Explaining away. Few important lines. Autopsy of graph and chart. Do you know what is autopsy? Autopsy means post-mortem. When a man died, then accidentally, then the doctor do it, or doctor does it. That means post-mortem. Post-mortem is the synonym of autopsy. Today we will do a work on graph and chart. How can we express a good, or how can we make a good graph and chart, and how can we explain a good graph and chart? That is why if I tell you what is graph and chart, then it will happen that a graph and chart is a combination or is a set of some information or data or datum. Number 2, that is why I think you have all understood what is graph and chart. Now I'll tell you types of graph and chart. There are different types of graph and chart. But all these types are not necessary to know. Just we will know bar chart, line chart and pie chart. What is bar chart and what is line chart and what is pie chart? Bar chart is that chart where we find different types of bar which indicates different information. Line chart is same, and in a pie chart we find a circle 360 degree which indicates 360 degree, and in pie chart we find different portion, and this different portion indicates different data or datum or information. I think you all have understood types of graph and chart. Now I'll explain necessary tools to explain graph and chart. Okay, number one. When we explain graph and chart, then I see that most of the students write the graph shows. But if you write the graph shows in every line, then it seems odd to everyone or to the teacher. That is why you have to use the graph shows, the diagram shows, the graph indicates, the chart notices, the graph gives a signal, the graph suggests, the graph reviews, the graph presents, the graph represents, the graph displays, or the chart signifies, or it is clear that. And if you write in such way, then every sentence will be different. And that is why I think it will be more effective and it will help you to get marks. So when we will explain a paragraph then or a graph, then we will not write the graph shows. We also write shows, indicates, notices, etc. all this word. Number two, explaining year. A graph also indicates different years and different percentages. Here we find a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. And in a vertical axis and in a horizontal axis, we find years and percentage. And when we find years, then we don't use in 1990. Just we use different things. That means next year, following year, previous year, during this period, next decade, following decade. Decade means 10 year. 80s, that means 1980. In the meantime, in the year 1980 or in plus year. I think you all have understood. We find different percentage or figure. Then most of the time we would use about 3.3%, about 30.9%. But instead of this but, we will use about. Instead of this about, we will use about, almost, approximately. Okay, sorry for interrupt. I'm very sorry. Rukon sir called me. That is why I talked to you. And at that point, about, almost, approximately, nearly, closely, and at least, we will use all these words. And after that, in a graph and chart, we find different data or datum which may increase or which may decrease or which may stable or which may fluctuate. That is why we will use when it rises or it increased or it increases, then we will use that climbed up, increased to, ascended to, rise to. And if it drops, then we will use, or if it reduces, then we will use drop to, reduce to, descended to, moving downward. And if we find rising and falling, then we will use rise and fall or fluctuate around, etc. If I find stable, then I will use did not change, remain stable, lasting, irreversible, persisted on. I think you all have understood. And after that, when we will explain a graph and chart, then we must be careful about this topic. That is topic sentence. Number 2 is supporting idea. Number 3 is concluding sentence. That means when we will explain a graph and chart, then we must focus these 3 terms. One is topic sentence, another is supporting sentence, number 3 is concluding sentence. Topic sentence is that sentence which are associated with topic. That means we will express 2 or 3 lines on that topic. If we find the people of Bangladesh who are living below the poverty line, then I will express 2 or 3 lines on this topic. Number 2, supporting sentence. Supporting sentence is that sentence we find different data or datum in a graph and chart, and I just explain according to this percentage and according to this year, and explain all this information taken from the graph. And after that we find the last portion, that is concluding sentence. At last I will tell 1, 2 or 3 concluding line. How can we remove it, and what is the present condition? By saying it we can conclude it. And after that we find that a question, that is we will find such type of question in a question paper. The question will be, the graph below shows the number of people in percentage living below the poverty line from 1995 to 2010. Describe the graph in 150 words. You should highlight and summarize the information given in the graph. Here I colored 3 phrases. That means living below the poverty line. That means it is the topic or main topic, and I have to write relating to this topic. And here another word, that is 150 word. That means you have to write about this, about 150 words. And number 3 is highlight and summarize. Highlight means you have to show it, the topic or the information you found, and you have to summarize it. Already I have mentioned a picture tells 1,000 words, and a graph and chart is more than a picture. That is why this graph and chart. And if I explain this graph and chart, then we will find that this is a horizontal axis and this is a vertical axis. On horizontal axis we find years 1995, 2004, 2008 and 2010. Here we find in percentage. In 1995 the people living below the poverty line is 35.6. In 2004, 45%. In 2008, 36.3%. In 2010, 31.51%. Now, I am explaining it within 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Just be careful, and if you follow this lecture, you will be able to answer, or you will be able to answer any type of graph and chart. Here the topic is the number of people living below the poverty line. You must write such type of sentence for the topic sentence, that is the bar chart, as it was a bar chart. The bar chart exposes or reveals a crystal clear phenomenon concerning the number of people living below the poverty line in different years from 1995 to 2010. The first line will be this: for every graph and chart, just you will change the main topic and year, nothing else. And second line, a recent survey presents the most important issue, that is nothing but poverty, which is gradually decreasing day by day. Perhaps you will find a graph and chart about coronavirus. Then you will say a recent survey presents the most important issue, that is nothing but coronavirus, which is gradually increasing or decreasing day by day. The horizontal axis and vertical axis of the presented diagram represents different years and range or percentage of poverty line respectively. And after that we will find a topic sentence. We have completed topic sentence. Now we will supporting sentence. The supporting sentence will be: practically the graph reports that in 1995 35.6% people lived below poverty line. After 9 years, that means in the year 2004 we see that 45% of people lived below the poverty line, and it was almost 10% more than that of 1995%. That means in 2004 we find 45%, and in 1995 we find 35.6%. If we subtract, then we'll find more than 10%. Though it is necessary to diminish the rate of poverty, it was blown up. Blown up means rise up in the year 2004. That means in 1995 it was 35.6%. In 2004 it was 45%. That means it has risen. Actually, the rate slowed down in the next 4 years. That means in 2008, some people came out of poverty. However, about 36.3% of people lived below the poverty year. Just after 2 years in 2010, some more people come out of poverty and it came down to 31.5%. Like as in 1995%, it was 35.6. 2004 45, 2008 30.6, 36.3. In 2010 it was 31.51. And at the last concluding portion, then we will find that it is fact that in the year from 2008 to 2010 poverty decreased noticeably. The highest poverty rate was in 2004 and the lowest rate was in 2010, which was 31.5%. According to the sketch means graph, we find that from the year 1995 to 2010, people came out of poverty line approximately 5.5%. On the other hand, from the year 1995 to 2004, poverty increased nearly 9.4%. It is very clear that poverty increased rapidly but decreased very slowly. As the poverty is decreasing day by day, we can dream that within a few years the country will turn into poverty-free country. I think you all have understood all these things. I have to finish it as soon as possible. That is why I am finishing today's class. Okay, goodbye. See you again. Bye.